in particular for Glory, I feel has no super polarized matchups. I would put it on having the best chance against Rogue, but again, we were seeing how Glory completely picked apart Alutemu yesterday just by timing his huge board to a extent where it was high stats and Divine Shield, which forced Alutemu to use double Immolation Aura and Talented Arcanist, and that was too much to come back from afterward. We do have Glory on a decent start here with Guess the Wait, but the Lunar Eclipse keep, I think, is in respect of what I was mentioning a while ago, just Tempo Rikara, Tempo Playmaker.
That's crazy, because it's like with a hand that has limited draw and no way to generate a board, one card slot being eaten up is a very, very big deal. And like you said, shows great respect to the potential for Warrior to develop the board early on. Quite a few choices actually for lambyseries as to how he should start this off. Coin one of the 2-drops is looking pretty tempting to me to corrupt these stage dives and get something on board.
Yeah, I definitely like the look of that. The stage dives being corrupted means that he's able to just potentially curve out with strong minions. And if this isn't exactly Lunar Eclipse from Glory, he's also just threatening putting down a rush minion in the near future. Although having said that, the lack of Crab Rider in the list makes it such that Glory doesn't necessarily have to Eclipse it this turn. But he might as well, right? Not just take the 2 damage, because he's gonna Eclipse that at some point.
Yeah, I think if they're going to follow up with Bumper Car, you may as well just go for it now. There's the upside of waiting for Gibbling for another proc, but that seems niche enough to not want to just take a bunch of damage at the start of the game.
Well, I think this is exactly 50-50 because the way the token druids are built, the most streamlined list is like you have an exactly even amount of 2-cost cards and then an even amount of cards that cost less than 2 as more than 2. So Glory just guesses wrong here, unfortunately.
Spidey Sense is not on point today. But as lambyseries, it goes with just playing out the stage dives, the 1-cost spells. We have to do a mandatory drip check, as I believe that is an HCT Singapore t-shirt he is wearing there. I have one myself. It is very high up on the priority of rotation of free Hearthstone shirts I've got. So I respect it big time.
That was the shirt I was wearing during rehearsal.
Oh.
We're all just in sync today, aren't we? And aside from his drip, he's got a buffed up Samuro off of stage dive, which is absolutely huge because Glory has now hit the Glowfly Swarm. He does, however, have the Soul of the Forest and quite a bit of mana cheat. So if he wants to play around Samuro, he can, but it'll take quite a lot of waiting time to get to an actual mana break point where he's able to do both in the same turn.
These are honestly all intriguing options for Glory. I think Overgrowth doesn't... I was going to say Overgrowth doesn't do it for me, but to be fair, if you can get to a point where you can go Glowfly plus Soul of the Forest on the same turn, that does have its merits. Obviously, Resizing Pouch can get you those key Lightning Bloom or Innovates if you play it with 0 mana left over. And Solar is just in the deck. It's just super powerful.
That is true. I was also looking at the Overgrowth, but I think what Glory's concerned about is he doesn't actually have that many spells in hand, right? So if he takes that and plays it down, and he can do the Glowfly turn with the Soul of the Forest the turn after, but it's not actually that many minions, and perhaps he was looking for something a bit higher impact. We could see him go for a 6-minion Glowfly here. Not the worst, but if there is the Samuro, or even just bumper card tokens with, say, Playmaker, that type of thing, because there's discounts that he knows about, it's going to be tough to rebuild the board.
I like it a lot. Let's just hold off for a turn, wait till you can get down the Soul of the Forest. Next turn, another spell means, of course, you get the full suite of Glowflies, assuming you don't get a Gibbling. And even though it gives them another full turn of development, unless they're going wide, you don't care that much. Individual big minions are not going to deal with what you're about to put down as Glory throws down the one ultimate turn. I love that our players on Token Druid are getting greedier with their plays. I feel like as the weeks go on, we're seeing less just throwing out cards willy-nilly and setting up for these ultimate unbeatable turns.
And because lambyseries cannot clean this up efficiently, the most he can clear is the first layer of minions into 10 trash or taking a value trade. He might potentially just ignore it for now. Say drop the Moonfang and go face, which is pushing 10 damage currently because of the rush tag and synergy with the ETC. It would a lot of situations force Glory to take the trades, and maybe he cleans up with Samuro afterward. I might be getting too fancy though. Of course, the Samuro will get rid of this first layer, but the scariest cards are still scary, even if he does clear up the first layer, right? It's Pride's Fury. I guess what Samuro denies this turn is exactly second Soul of the Forest. Sorry, by not playing the Samuro, I mean.
Yeah, so by Samuro this turn, you meant not Samuro this turn.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, if he does Samuro and clear, then
Yes,
the second
yeah,
Soul
yeah.
becomes better.
No, for sure. The only other line I'm thinking about is it worth going for the Crab Rider bumper card? Because, yes, it clears off another Glowfly, but it also just gets in more ETC damage immediately. I'm not entirely sure how relevant that is, but it can do something, you know. It clears off another 2 of the Glowflies, and you push quite a lot of damage phase.
That's true. This is a halfway point that Lamby is going for. He does end up sending the 10th Trasher face. Blood Boil Brute used to be amazing in this matchup. Not necessarily sure how many damage minions there will be at the end of this, but now Glory has a hold of the Arbor up. No mana to play it. Lamby knew that he would be overloaded, so he's not respecting the attack burst, but Glory has plenty of refill.
Yeah, very cleverly trading away the minions without Death Rattle as well, partly to make room for the Thorn Growth, but I think even more so just because he's very cognizant of that Samuro. You want to make sure you're playing around it as much as possible. And even putting the taunts in the way means that Samuro can't attack into one of the Glowflies. It has to attack into another one, which it would kill anyway. So just making it even harder for this board to be efficiently cleared.
Oh no, it only has 1 HP with the Samuro Playmaker, I mean.
Yeah.
But it can still get rid of a Glowfly because that first Samuro will leave 4 Glowflies left on the board. Although by that point, if you are just getting like 1 minion, perhaps it's worth saving the Playmaker to go with the Dark Moon tokens instead. The problem is Lamby will just be floating a lot of mana if it's only Samuro this turn.
And there's no way that you can get Blood Boil down as well, is there? No, because nothing gets damaged. Yeah.
Only the Samuro. So it looks like he is going to take the copy to clear an additional Glowfly.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's bad. It's the one thing that Glory doesn't just insta-win against. But he does still have Solar Eclipse plus Arbor up. He really can only be so upset. He has the literal best possible follow-up.
Right, and as long as he trades the Playmaker to avoid disaster, I think he's completely fine. Could even VT the Samuro, sure. There's just nothing that deals with this board at this point except a generated second Samuro that is also immediately buffed, which is just not possible with the amount of cards that Glory has seen.
Yeah, I mean, if that Blood Boil in hand was a Samuro and he had conditioning, then we could talk. But obviously, well, he would actually have a board clear then, right, with the double Dark Moons as well. But obviously that is super, super niche. We're not going to bother playing around that. And lambyseries just throws it down. Glory getting the win with the Druid, as we are seeing not only from Glory, not only from the Japanese players, but just time and again here in Asia-Pacific. I think the play is being brought down to a science. This is one of those Hearthstone decks with little random generation, a whole lot of card draw, and those are the kind of decks that you can figure out. You can pretty much just see a lot of the same thing every game, and there just becomes a correct way to play it. And I think Glory has found that absolutely at this point.
Yep. I definitely like Lamby's approach, though, not going for the immediate Samuro because he realized it didn't actually give him that much of an advantage on board to get rid of the first layer of Soul of the Forest. And the Moonfang play I was suggesting also would have just died to 3 trades, so perhaps going a bit wider with those minions, taking value trades and partially clearing the board while still pushing the damage because he had ETC was the best way to approach it. He just did not have the answer for Arbor up with the Solar Eclipse right on time from Glory. It was the perfect storm, and it absolutely is down to a science how to play Token Druid at this point. The only real difference that Glory went for was keeping the Lunar Eclipse in this matchup, which potentially saved him a lot of health.
And now for the Q order here, because this is where, if I was in lambyseries' shoes, I would have to put my money where my mouth is, because I've been saying over the last couple of weeks, you know, Miracle Rogue, I don't think it's that bad of a deck against Token Druid. I've had favorable matchups against it on ladder, but would I queue it over the Token Druid, which is obviously a 50-50 because they're the same deck. And I think in this instance, I like what lambyseries is doing by just going for the Miracle Rogue. If you're playing it well, I think you can get yourself over a 50% win rate just about against the Token Druid, as long as they don't do something like they just did in the last game, because you can shut that down very often with Cult Neophyte, a whole bunch of removal. I like the Q.
That's right. Lamby also picked apart this matchup when we saw him on stream last week with the Kazakas discounting one-cost Golem off of Octobot to be very, very powerful, not really to shoot individual minions, but to buff the board that Lamby had already built, which he then Shadow Stepped the Golem and then just took all the value trades, which meant that the next board that the Token Druid built still was not able to stick. And it's that kind of proactive line that Rogue can take that I feel is really, really backbreaking for the Token Druid. If he's queuing this, then he feels like it's greater than 50-50 in the matchup, or perhaps he doesn't want his own Token Druid to be cornered and wants it to be saved, particularly for Glory's OTK Demon Hunter.
Very possibly, yeah, that's a good point. You of course have to consider what is left from your opponent as well after you supposedly win this first matchup. But again, with Token Druid still available to both players, I don't want to call it over. Even if lambyseries loses here, there's still obviously the potential for Token Druid to just clean sweep for him. So it really is wild card in terms of the Hearthstone decks. Anybody's series here still. But I hope for the best here for lambyseries, because it's a matchup that I think when played well can work out very well for the Miracle Rogue. And as you said, we've already seen him play a very, very cool version of the matchup where you go for one-cost Kazakas Golem, replay it a bunch of times with your field contact. He clearly knows what he is doing, and let's see if he can put it into action already with Efficient Octobot in hand, ready to go. The dream card against Token Druid. And Glory doesn't even want to keep Guess the Weight in the starting hand. I was thinking you might hold on to that to try and guarantee yourself some card draw. But he goes with a full mull.
Wow, it seems like we're just seeing newer and newer iterations on how you treat Guess the Mull. Glory keeps it on the play. I think we were seeing from Shaxi the other day, just not keeping it on the play either. Or was it Tom, maybe? And then I just kind of thought you would keep it most of the time, except if you're on the coin already with Fungal, because then hand space becomes an issue. But Glory is just going for the even higher roll here, trying to turbo into Glowfly. But not only does he have a very bad situation to play Thorn Growth into, I don't think he even plays it, he has no card draw.
Yeah, I think maybe if you had like another Innovate in hand, you could mess around with Gibbling Coin Thorn Growth into Vate Pride's Fury or Bloom Arbor Up, something like that. But as it currently stands, nothing doing there. And so Glory takes the initiative to proactively proc the Octobot, a play that we see more and more as time goes on. Because even though he wasn't planning on playing anything, with the threat of both Guardian Orc Merchant and Prize Plunderer, it's too scary to leave it on board for them to draw as much as they want.
Right. Even though it would take a card from Lamby to activate it the very next turn, so you would technically discount the same amount of cards that Glory did, it's just the fact that you give the Rogue initiative of how they want to plan the discounts if you leave the Frenzy on the Octobot. And so Glory does not want to take that risk. He is just hoping to draw into something to do with the Gibberling or the Glowfly in the near future. As it happens, the Cult Neophyte might not actually be that bad for him for this particular turn, but if he top decks Fungal, it is very bad indeed.
lambyseries here, I wonder if you ever go Tenwu on the Octobot, because you could play it again immediately, and discounting this hand again is pretty good just to get Foxy Fraud to 0 mana. Like, he could turbo draw through most of his deck at that point. But obviously Tenwu really wants to go on the Neophyte as well if you are going to go for that plan to replay it. So there was a lot actually going on that turn. I think it was deceptively complicated.
Right, he did have some opportunities to get even more discounts, like you said, but I think he's just trying to save all the battle cries for the field contact turn, and now with the Shadow Step, see things get insane here. That Neophyte is getting stepped every day of the week. Yep,
100%, and this is the hand. The Mask of Cthulhu over the AI, I love that as well. I think that's a great understanding of how you can clear a board or just go for lethal as the game develops. Glory chuckling to himself here as, I mean, that's really all you can do here. The Rogue drew the good hand, and this is what you don't beat as Druid.
Lamby's only first world problem is that he doesn't have a good use of his combo cheapening from the Foxy Fraud, but it does not matter. This is just end turn, be happy with your life because you're going to draw your deck next turn if there is no Lunar Eclipse, and for now, there is none.
Yeah, he just goes for Fungal Fortunes, accepting that he's probably going to overdraw.
Yeah.
Sure. Or, well, definitely going to overdraw 2, actually, as it just so happens. Fine.
All right, start with the 10. Glory's like, yep, I know how it works.
It really is just what Druid players wake up in a cold sweat having nightmares about is Cult Neophyte. It's the one card that just deletes the deck if you draw it. And lambyseries doing a very, very good job there. Again, while there were a couple of other decisions he could have messed about with in the mid-game, I think the few decisions he had, looking back on it retroactively, just played it perfectly. Not especially complicated, but well done.
Yeah, he had a very good understanding of saving on to the battle cards to get the most value off of his field contact. Because while Neophyte is good, if you're not actually developing pressure alongside it, the Druid can just wait. They can build their board turn 7 and still kill you turn 8 a lot of the time. So for Lamby there, he balanced getting the Neophyte down alongside a lot of minions that could threaten counter lethal. And we saw there, even if Glory didn't go for the immediate concede, Lamby still just had Aug Merchant for his field contact, so it couldn't immediately be killed by Lunar Eclipse. And Glory certainly knew not only was that a possibility, but just the Neophyte coming down X number of times more was just not a game he wanted to stay in, and you absolutely cannot blame him. But now we're going to see Glory on the opposite end of the matchup he played against Alutemu yesterday.
Right, the Demon Hunter against the Rogue. And again, as I said, Rogue against Demon Hunter is looking closer to a 50-50 than we anticipated. I still don't think it's a disastrous matchup by any means for the Demon Hunter. The Neophyte can mess you up a little bit, similarly to Demon Hunter, but to nowhere near the same degree. You can still usually find some way to draw cards, and as long as you're able to play Skull at some point, you're usually able to get there before the Rogue can kill you, because really you have like till turn 10 a lot of the time, because turn 10 is where both the Wicked Stabs obviously upgrade to 6 damage, but also that's when a lot of the times the Alex Straza combo comes down with Tenwu as well. So you have a good amount of time as OTK Demon Hunter to get there. It's just about making sure you're not overly pressured in the early game so that you don't have to use all your combo to clear.
Right. Importantly, it also just has ways to deal with Neophyte that are not spell-based. The Eldrazi Warblades is the main one, and this list from Glory is also running Ooze in there, so that's just a fine tempo play, and a lot of these minions are redundant. They can be thrown onto the board for presence or just dumping your hand a lot of the time, and that means that Glory does have ways to fight back. I find that the most skilled Rogue players, though, know when to get a lot of pressure on the board. They don't want to overextend after they've just seen a Skull, for example, and both the Immolation Aura are still unplayed. That is often asking for trouble, and when they do go very high pressure on board, they want to go for some type of stickiness as well. Divine Shield on the Golems or attaching a Neophyte to the end of the turn is definitely one of the strongest ways to complicate Demon Hunter's removal plans. Oh.
Very, very true, but Glory here just has already the Stone Cold Cocoa Nuts with Illidari Studies into Coin Skull. Even the Warblades just to buy him some time. This is the dream. Whereas lambyseries on the other side has, I don't know, whatever the opposite of a coconut is, he's got that.
I thought you were going to say the opposite of a dream, and I was going to say nightmare, but I don't know what the opposite of a coconut is. I am so sorry. Keep of the Warglyphs, I definitely respect. Ooh, Sigil Runner is also a way to get the card draw rolling, but of course he just wants earlier Skull. The reason for keeping Warblades, I think, is to get rid of Cult Neophyte. If it comes down earlier than into the Skull turn, then he can clear it so it doesn't get stepped, doesn't get Tenwooed, and the Skull is undisturbed.
No, that's a very, very good point. And I really like Kurtrus as well as a card. Like, you have to remember the outcast part is the invulnerability. It still attacks the left and rightmost minion when you play it, which very often against Rogue will just kill 2 minions. A lot of them are 2/3s, 3/2s, or 2/1s, things like that. Very, very small minions that Kurtrus can happily chew through. But if we needed any indication of how bad the hand was from lambyseries, this is a turn 3 secret passage, and he gets the other 4 worst cards in his deck. This is a disaster.
I'm going to go ahead and say the opposite is Coco Nuts. This is not it, Derek. What is he going to do? Just wicked stab face? Oh. That's depressing. And on top of all of that, Glory with the Kurtrus, it feels like Alutamu has just passed on his spirit from yesterday after Glory got double Kurtrus as token Druid for Alutamu to stabilize like the gazillionth board that Glory had built. Now he has the Kurtrus for his own revenge. And we could see just an easy Warblades into Coin Skull, and there is not much Lamby can do about it.
Yeah, he's at 7 cards, so he goes up to 8. Yeah, doesn't even need to play anything out. Just not even hand space being an issue. That is an interesting draw, though. Obviously, Field Contact plus Org Merchant would be a way to maybe make it a little bit more survivable. But he is just going with the Wand Thief right out the gate and bouncing back for Field Contact. Okay, I think the 2 ways to go about that were either like Field Contact Org Merchant and pray that they can't kill it because they have to go Coin Skull, or you just go for this line where you bounce it back and then go for a bigger Miracle turn next turn.
I think that's very reasonable from Lamby. He didn't have a hard read on Coin Skull either. Of course, you can kind of assume it because Glory kept the 2 left-hand cards, but even if there's Coin Skull, sometimes they just get 1 more damage card plus the weapon swing, and then even a Divine Shield Field Contact is not safe. So Lamby is trying to draw towards his own counter-offensive, but he's not hitting any of the good cards. Kazakus, Mankrik, Jandis, all unseen.
Yeah, he can go Octobot and then shoot it with the Prize Plunger and it would survive at 1 health, in which case, you know, he discounts a pretty good hand, arguably. Like, Alex Straza getting cheapened is okay and the rest are all 1 cost. But he instead just goes with killing off his own Wand Thief, a truly dire proposition, but I guess the best he can muster.
It was a good hand, but not good enough to discount, says Lamby, and definitely getting the Cult Neophyte in the mix can make some miracles happen. But I think he was really digging for Tenwu to simultaneously discount and get the Alex Tenwu combo to a point where he can cheese it, because it already seems like he's in that bad of a situation. As for Glory, he has the discounted Moarg with double Philosophy, so already breakpoints are out the window. Glory just does not have to care about putting Lamby to 24 or 28. All he has to do is not die and draw Il'gynoth.
Yeah, literally just Il'gynoth is the only thing that matters. Don't know, I went a bit American when I said that. It's literally all he cares about. I was kind of looking at Kurtrus there, I have to be honest, because I know that it just dies instantly, but the play of going for specifically Immolation Aura is a very valuable card in the matchup. You could argue he's so far in the lead anyway, like he still has just 0 mana Fellscream Blast if he needs to, plus all this other removal. But it was a relatively liberal use of one of the key cards in the matchup.
It's true. I think he is just viewing the Kurtrus as a substitute for Immolation Aura, because with this type of opener from Lamby where he's not played Mankrik, he's not played Kazakus for any golems, the actual only threat to Glory on this turn is Jandis. And against Jandis, your Kurtrus attacks the left and right generated minions, so it will immediately kill off one illusion.
True.
And then he just has like other answers to get through the rest of the turn with the weapon still up. So I think it's absolutely fine from Glory.
And again, he gets something on the board, but this is just... I mean, even against a tempo deck, this would be too slow what lambyseries is doing, but against a combo deck, he is putting no pressure on the board, applying no kind of threat whatsoever. He's going to have to rely on some pretty funky stuff with this Cult Neophyte to have anywhere near enough disruption to stop Glory from just getting the win.
And for Glory, this does look like at least a decent Kurtrus plus swing turn. Even if he gets frozen, it is not a big deal. Oh, okay. He's going to swing into the smaller minion, and then Kurtrus gets rid of the Water Ellie. That's just better.
Yeah, very clever.
All he needs to do is potentially dump enough cards so that if the double jump rips second skull next turn, that he can immediately play it. And that is no problem. He can actually just evaluate next turn if he wants to throw some Moargs in the mix, because he absolutely does not need all three of them.
And as lambyseries is losing on board against Demon Hunter at the moment, he, obviously he could swing it back very, very easily on this turn. It's just about how does he do that with maximum efficiency, because I'm still looking at the fact that you kind of want to go, what, neophyte, step, neophyte? I don't know.
I mean, maybe that's what he was thinking about before, but look at the cards he's discounting now.
It's a lot of damage.
I think he even steps his Octobot and brain freezes it.
Whoa.
Isn't that spicy? He can go for the combo next turn. And then the frickin' stabs are free. He doesn't have enough damage, but
24?
it's a lot.
It's very spicy. Could then also play the neophyte?
Could be. I don't know if there's a way to maneuver this where you can get the Shadow Step onto Tenwu instead, so you can get more damage, but the mana's just not there if he doesn't step the Octobot. However, because it's still a ways off before he actually gets to turn 10 with the upgraded Wicked Stabs, he's just saying, I might as well save the Shadow Step for the Tenwu anyway. Alright. Hand space, a big issue because of that neophyte, but health, not an issue whatsoever.
Yeah, as long as you kill the neophyte, you're happy here.
And then Warglaves at the end to get it out of hand. Sure.
Very nice, yep. Still just keeping his card economy nice and low so that he has, or hand economy, so he has plenty of room for the Skull of Gul'dan. Another Octobot being found for Lamby is not what you want.
Oh, it's almost so good. If it somehow goes off, if there was some miracle, then he can just deal, like, lethal next turn if that Octobot could go off, but alas. I think he still just plays it on the off chance it does go off. It swings into the Kurtrus.
Oh my god, that would be so sick. Can you imagine?
I mean, the other play is complete pass, right? Because if you proc Og Merchant or Brain Freeze or Price Blunderer, then you proc the Octobot, and then you deal the lethal on turn 10.
I don't think I've ever seen quite so stark a matchup of OTK Demon Hunter versus OTK Rogue.
Yep. So currently, if Lamby waits for turn 10 with no further discounts, he's not actually able to play everything all together, right? So he does need an Octobot discount at some point. It just depends on whether he thinks this is likely at all to get a proc on it, which Glory is not going to give if he can say anything about it. But currently, he doesn't actually have a way unless he wants to spend Moarg and Talented Arcanist, although that's probably just worth it, right?
Yeah, I mean, he could just, like, play Fell Screamer and then it can't kill it. But as he has every combo piece you could possibly want, this is a quadrillion damage, but no way to do it because the Il'gynoth is not in hand. Lambyseries surprisingly close to lethal here, I will say.
Oh, so close but so far.
So far.
You just can't proc the Octo. Is there any damaging minion you can get from Jandice on your own minion? I don't think so.
Not that I can think of.
So many options.
So does he deviate now to Jandice, Tenwu, Jandice, and then he can step the Tenwu because like he'll have enough mana to work with next turn anyway?
Yeah, but then it's only 22 damage he can deal in a single turn. It kind of needs to be the full suite.
Well, it never gets higher unless he discounts the Octobot.
I know, yeah.
So he has to go for some type of hybrid game plan. I'm just not sure which is better.
I can just imagine if we want to roleplay this, like Valera just begging, please let me stab you. Please, come on, just one time. Please.
It's so strangely close, but it is not getting there.
Oh. Just imagine if that was a 3 attack and not a 4 attack, the game literally just ends. Crazy. But Skull off the top is a huge pickup for Glory.
I think a lot of the time the game literally just ends, like you were saying here. Glory can just spend this not actually zero cost Moarg, and then sure, an Arcanist not necessary here. Even if you use the spell damage on the skull, it's so fine for him. Oh.
Okay, but if he goes for this... Okay, he can still kill the Octo. That's okay.
Yeah. Glory's upset with something. I don't know if it's because he started with Arcanist instead of Og Merchant. Maybe he was like thinking, oh no, I play the Arcanist, so I can't waste the skull spell damage. I think it was fine for him to waste the spell damage.
Yeah,
it's really small things. All right. Currently, 20... No, it's not even enough damage, right? He can only play Alex twice, max.
You can go Alex, Tenwu, Alex, all of it pointed face, and then Shadow Step the Alex, so that you can then next turn go Alex double Wicked Stab. Obviously, you are expecting a big heal from them, but I mean, you're not winning this game, right? You need some miracle to go right, and I don't really see what else you can get.
So many options.
Yep. Oxyfraud not able to do anything here as well. Tenwu sadly not a combo card.
Or you could go Alex face and then double Wicked Stab face and then step your Alex instead and then go Alex, Tenwu, Alex. It's basically much of the same that you're working with there.
Yeah, I think your line is best. It's just max damage, right? Because if there's Il'gynoth, you're dead no matter what the board state is. And so he instead is pretending there's no more healing, potentially, because he has just seen a Fell Scream Blast. It's very niche, but it is the only out. So Lamby's going for it.
Okay, I don't know if I like this line quite so much, because it means he doesn't have mana to fit it all in next turn. But it does not matter. Glory has just drawn the Il'gynoth, and he can get the win now. That was surprisingly close, and I'm not even sure if Glory knows how on the precipice he was that game.
Wait, he's not going for ultra mega damage here? Much more he can do. He could play the Og Merchant or the Arcanist and then Fell Scream. I just wanted to see record-breaking Il'gynoth breakpoints. I'm sorry. I'm a Lamby fan, but it's not often you get 4 Moargs and a spell damage minion to deal lethal.
It's not often, but Glory is humble in victory. He doesn't want to BM his opponent too heavily. And so lambyseries seeing his best counter queue here as the Druid, or really I guess actually his only one, sorry, as he only has the Druid left over to try and sweep both the Demon Hunter on the other side and the Rogue, I believe, is the one deck remaining for Glory. Not what you want to be queuing into the Demon Hunter, I would argue. It's a close matchup, but I still feel that the Demon Hunter does, if played correctly, have a little bit of an edge. You have the board clears to survive the early turns, and then even if they're developing boards into like turn 6 or 7, very often you can just kill them at that point.
Although this was just such an interesting mid-game situation for Lamby.
Yeah.
Obviously, he had the worst possible opening hand into a very bad secret passage. That's why it got to this kind of situation where he had to rely on Alex Tenwu to get the win. You don't often do that in this matchup. But I really wonder if there was a different line that could have been taken. Obviously, what I was suggesting to Shadow Step the Octobot wouldn't have given him an OTK. It would have been 28 damage with Dagger, which is just short of lethal. But it gives him a Shadow Step out to be able to just deal lethal if he draws Shadow Step for that big combo to play the Tenwu again. What Lamby went for was giving himself outs to draw instead like other activators for the Octobot if he had held onto it for a turn longer. It was just really, really difficult to navigate. But I just find it cool that Rogue can get into those situations.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason it's my favorite deck at the moment. I think it's very, very skill testing, and you end up in a lot of varied situations where you have to test the board development plan, the removal plan, and the burst plan, all of which are extremely potent in the deck. But lambyseries is going with a slightly different build of Toku Druid from what we usually see. 1 Pride's Fury, 1 Soul of the Forest, and double Resizing Pouch, a card that definitely is knowledge testing. You know, you have to know when are the correct places to play it. But after you did a little bit of homework a couple weeks ago when I was maybe a little bit mean to Give Please, I think it was. If you play it with 0 mana left over, I think you were saying it's 60% to hit either Innovate or Lightning Bloom at that point.
It's 60% to hit exactly Lightning Bloom. There's only 5 0 cost cards that you can get as Druid. 3 of them are like Druid cards, so it's like Pounce, Innervate, Lightning Bloom, and then you have 2 neutral minions, Desk Imp and Murloc Tinyfin. So you are very likely, almost guaranteed, to get extra mana, and then for it to be exactly Lightning Bloom is 60%. So that card can be maneuvered to give you even more mana cheat, and if you're Eddie, it can be maneuvered to give you Alexstrasza for a bit more reach as well.
Indeed. But nothing doing in lambyseries' starting hand, so we're going to mulligan away for the card draw, you'd have to imagine. And finally, while Glorious has got himself not a terrible hand, he hasn't drawn the absolute nuts here. He doesn't have an early skull guaranteed yet. So it's going to be, I think, a close game. lambyseries needs a little bit of help, but this hand can do some stuff.
The opener from Glory is so bad that I was considering him maybe holding on to the studies for one more turn to give him the out of outcasting Spectral Sight the next turn. Picks up Sigil Runner, so it's all good, but I think the potential to draw an extra card when this hand needs card draw so badly was maybe worth waiting a bit, because he had nothing to do on turn 2, theoretically anyway.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess if he did get, like, Spectral Sight, you'd kind of want to pick it over Sigil Runner there, but you wouldn't be able to outcast it. I guess the thought process might be that the left-hand side of his hand is very easy to dump. But even so, getting Sigil Runner here is still very nice.
Sorry. He's on the coin. I'm being stupid. He could have just coined it out if he got this Spectral Sight discounted.
Sure. Yeah.
And he was offered the Spectral Sight, but then he just said he would rather have the coin in hand. I'm not necessarily sure if you would prefer that, though, because I felt he needed more card draw.
Well, he's got it in the Skull of Gul'dan anyway, so the card draw is not in any fear of drying up yet. He just needs to be given boards that he will happily dump this removal on, because you don't just want to go Arcanist Fellscream on nothing in this matchup. But aside from that, this is starting to look much more amenable to Glory. It's a good hand.
Decent against what Lamby has to offer for this turn, which is potentially Glowfly. However, you really want to give the Glowfly some insurance against Demon Hunter. You don't want to just feed them an Immolation Aura that takes nothing extra to deal with it. Problem for Lamby is that he's quite a bit of extra mana generating spells away from being able to tag the Pride Fury onto the end. So he's just asking the first question here. If it's not Immolation Aura, he just wins on the spot. Although if it's a partial clear, it's still pretty good.
It's pretty good, yeah. He can clear all but one if he wants to.
But for Lamby, just like Bloom, Solar Arbor, even with one remaining minion, is pretty okay.
I mean, that's what he's been setting up for, right? That's why I was okay with the Glowfly on the previous turn, just because he has guaranteed strong follow-up.
I grow impatient.
Glory deciding if he can get away with Og Merchant potentially here.
Interesting. And these 2 left on board are going to be a real nightmare for him. That 1 extra buff is a big deal.
That's a terror. From Lamby's perspective, the only worry is that he doesn't actually get the Glowflies out of a health range of something like Talented Arcanist, the second one, with Immolation Aura. But like, the Demon Hunter's drawn barely any cards, right? You just play the token Druid saying, I'm going to go all in here. If you have it, you have it, and then I just have Fungal Fortunes to keep on chugging along. And a lot of the time, you don't have it.
Yeah, 100% agree with this play. There was some thought process to going Bloom, Adorable Infestation, Pride's Fury just to save the Arbor up for the turn after, but it would have meant you can't even play it next turn because you were overloaded for 2. This just works out so much cleaner. Still have Pride's Fury for the next turn, and Glory finds Crimson Sigil Runner, so he can at least just go for a redo on the mana. But he keeps digging, finds the Immolation Aura with spell damage as well.
Oi, oi, oi. That's huge.
However,
Og Merchant.
It dies after the first hit, though, so it only does 3 damage of AoE.
That's true.
Which is a big difference.
All the difference in the world. Glory can still just I-beam one of them. It's unfortunate. You saw him go for Spectral Sight over Crimson Sigil Runner in particular because he wanted a 2-card combination, right? He wanted like Moarg with Immolation Aura or Talented Arcanist with Immolation Aura. Didn't get those, got only half, so he had to settle for this mediocre board clear. And Labby, even though he used a ton of resources, is very happy with this outcome. He is just gonna put Glory to 3, and he's seen so much removal already.
Yep, I love this use of the Pride Series. Let's not mess around with drawing cards. You have everything you need already. Force them to have the answer, and it has to come off this skull. Glory gets Fell Scream Blast, Chaos Strike, none of it going to be clearing this board though. And the Druids getting wins on either side now. Oh sorry, getting a win once for Glory and once for lambyseries. And now it all comes down to this. The Druid left over for the lambyseries and the Rogue for Glory. The matchup that lambyseries won earlier on today in this series. And now it needs to break serve, I guess, and win the matchup from both sides to win the series.
And if you're in Lamby's shoes, you gotta not be feeling so confident, right? Because he was willing to queue his Rogue into Token Druid as opposed to the Mirror, which means he most likely favors the Rogue in that matchup, at least ever so slightly. And so Lamby's gonna be looking for, I guess, just the same game plan as always. It's really more up to the Rogue to have the goods that can actually stop this type of pressure happening.
Interesting matchup again. Glory close to stabilizing there. And I think lambyseries, just at all points, they're realizing you do sometimes want to go for the greedier lines. As I was saying just earlier on today, I like that players have been playing a little bit more greedily with the Druids, saving up for these big Glowfly plus Soul of the Forest or Pride Fury turns. But just by going for it more liberally there, he was able to force removal from his opponent. Glory did not have the Immolation Aura right at the start. If he had, maybe it would be a different story. But it was enough to get the job done. So I think good recognition of when you want to play liberally rather than greedily.
Yeah, I think particularly for Lamby, the difference maker was the fact that he had Fungal to follow up in case there was Immolation Aura for that first Glowfly board. He really had no board to build afterward, but he had card draw, right? And by that point, maybe enough mana to play second Glowfly or Gibberling with one of those insurance cards you were talking about, the Pride's Fury or the Soul of the Forest, which actually function very similarly against Demon Hunter because of the way Immolation Aura works, which is dealing damage twice, and so you can get through the Death Rattle layer as well. And if it's additional health on the minions, a lot of the time you still need Immolation Aura plus spell damage instead to get through that high health. In the case of Token Druid versus Rogue, though, we've already seen this at the beginning of the series, and Glory will very much be looking for that Octobot once again.
Absolutely. That's the primary game plan you just want to be going for. Maximum development right out of the gate. Removal is nice, of course, to be able to go for a reactive game plan after they go for their Glowflies, Arbor Ups, Gibberlings, whatever it may be. But getting ahead on board, getting those Neophytes down is, as we saw, just so back-breaking. And Glory, of course, going to be knowing exactly what he's looking for. Man, just to try and get into lambyseries' head going into this final game, like it's all down to this one Druid that could potentially be the difference between staying in Grandmasters and being relegated out at the end of this season. So he is sat there just praying to whatever will listen to him for a good draw one last time on this Druid.
Gonna have to get past the world champion to do it though, and this is obviously not the kind of hand you want to start with for the Druid. We're looking for a card draw, card draw, card draw. Ooh.
Okay, respectable hands for both players. Obviously, Lamby wishes he was on the coin with this hand. You know, Gibberling, Fungal, Glowfly all get a little bit better. But Glory has got the juice, my goodness.
It's not just Octobot, it's Neophyte with Shadow Step. That's so powerful here. And Glory just gonna hold on to the Octobot because he has no good way to activate it the very next turn. And he's just chiming the Neophyte into what I believe will be Fungal Fortune's turn.
Yep, the Gibberling turn here, I think, is time to go. It uses up a couple of spells, but the you know, it refreshes itself effectively in terms of Glowfly with the nature studies, and it just means that if there isn't a clear, he can just start going in with the Fungal Fortunes draw while still developing. It's a very strong start.
Yeah, he just gets the best of both worlds, right? This is the type of play that is able to shut down just Neophyte on the next turn because Glory has to get rid of the 1/1. I honestly wonder if it was ever Octobot there for Glory.
Maybe. I mean, I think what Glory is really shaking his head at is why didn't I Octobot on turn 1? Coining Octobot was, I think, a play that a lot of players would have gone for.
It's true. Definitely didn't mess with his curve.
Insufficient.
Gonna go for it here, and it's still pretty decent.
Oh man, this is going to be so close. Like the rest of Glory's hand is just absolute straight fire. But if lambyseries can find a way to get down this Glowfly now, he is looking in a great spot.
He can't, but he can potentially deny the Octobot with Resizing Pouch. I don't know the odds on this one. There's too many 3-cost cards in the pool, but Moon-Touched Amulet and Feral Rage,
right,
both possible to just take down the 1/4 without the Frenzy effect. And a lot of the times that makes him home free to go for Glowfly, but Lamby is not going to mess with those odds. Probably knows a lot better than I do what the odds of getting a good pouch are. And, oh no, misses on Lightning Bloom, but gets Innervate.
Yeah, I think this was smart because it gets the board down now, and if he got Bloom that you were talking about, he can just go Bloom Solar Arbor, which pretty much instantly ends the game. But it does mean that he had to proc the Octobot, which means Glory gets a turn of being able to pop off now.
Oh man, it's double Neophyte, or even a single one is fine, I guess. As long as he coins some removal as well, or coins it in this order, sure.
Prize Plunderer can step that, but you really want the Neophyte down more importantly, don't you?
Right, because if you go Prize Plunderer and then they have, say, worst case scenario Lunar Eclipse into Glowfly, then the Neophyte feels pretty bad there. So I was more interested in getting it down this turn. He's going for halfway point though, where it's double Prize Plunderer, so he gets the full board clear instead. I don't mind this either, as long as he goes for maximum disruption, either on board or in hand.
Well, it does just open up straight up Glowfly as, well, actually I was going to say a good option for lambyseries. He only actually gets 5 Glowflies, right? Because most of his hand is Marsuls. So a lot less impactful than I was initially suspecting.
Not great.
What to do?
It's the only play though. He has no way to get rid of the field contact this turn. And if he does any other board development, it requires spells, right? So it's going to weaken the Glowfly even further.
And for Glory, this honestly is great news compared to what you could see from Token Druid at this point in the game. Another Prize Plunderer is massive. You just go. Field contact is always killed on the turn it's played, because when it isn't, this happens. You just start going absolutely bananas.
You just win the game.
Yeah.
No two ways about it. Og Merchant able to shoot down another Glowfly after the Octobot trades in as well. Oh, you hate to see it for Lamby. You can tell from his expression.
Yeah, it's backbreaking. It's a horrible matchup to have your potential run in Grandmasters be dependent on. Because there was little he could have done.
Is there any top deck that gets him out of this? Like a Lightning Bloom? Nope. Neophyte will shut everything down.
Yeah, I mean, Bloom still technically gains him 1 mana, but there's nothing he can even really do with that. You just have to go for second Glowfly here and trade off the field contact, I think.
You know what, Derek? I take back everything I said about Token Druid having a chance versus Rogue. It's just never happened this entire weekend where Token Druid has beaten Rogue. Never.
Like, to be fair, the Rogues have been drawing the cocoa nuts every single game, I feel like, with the Neophytes, Octobots, field contacts. Like, on both sides, they had the absolute dream. But I agree. It's just looking more and more like, unless you get a ridiculous start as the Token Druid, you just fall too far behind early on.
Oh, is it really not Jandis here? Okay.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking you just lock the board down with that, but even that is not strong enough. Flurry is honestly premium here, just because it allows you to push face if you want to.
Yeah.
That's an upgrade. Probably.
He's just drawing his entire deck.
Just enough space for Mankrik consumed by hatred to come down. Trade there. Can flurry after this.
Yeah.
There is not lethal on board for the next turn, but he has double stab in hand, so okay, I guess Glory's a trade gamer till the very bitter end.
I mean, you don't want to flurry just so you don't overdraw.
Man. Winning too hard is when Glory is like, oh no, what do I do?
Yeah, suffering from success. lambyseries calculating, of course, as he should do, any possible avenue back into the game. If he draws, sorry, not Solar Eclipse, Lunar Eclipse, can he make anything happen there by killing off the field contact or even maybe the Neophyte first? Because Tenwu is very likely to have been found at this point, but no matter how dig I deep, even if you want to stack the deck perfectly however you want. Oh, how deep I dig, sorry. I'm losing my mind here. I just don't see it coming together. Yeah, not even Jubble Dump can save him here.
It just doesn't work. There's nothing off of... Okay, if he goes Guess the Weight, gets the other resizing pouch. What's there for 4 mana? I'm not seeing it. I am not seeing it. One thing we do know about Lamby is that he never throws in the towel until it is truly and completely over. To be fair to him, Glory kind of messed up last turn in terms of like trading the Mankrik. I think that was not strictly necessary. Maybe it's still just fine, but like...
I mean, I think the first thing you do here is just get rid of your field contact. That is just going to mess you up this game. You do not want to be bothering with drawing any more cards. Like, if you play Kazakas here, you literally just overdraw a card.
Efficient is sufficient.
Really hope he picks 10 here, because it would just be funny.
I'm pretty sure it's a 1, but it would be funny. What do you know? He can now trade the field contact to not overdraw. Unless he... Okay, he really wants to keep it around.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, it literally doesn't matter losing a card. This is also just kind of funny. How hard Glory is winning.
Yeah, funny for some, less so for others, sadly.
Rough for Lamby. You can see how much it means to him because he really needed these points. Glory kind of wants the points to just secure him being in playoffs, but it's not nearly as necessary for him as it is for Lamby to get out of those bottom 4 slots. And we talk about how, for Lamby in particular, it's not about him actually getting relegated because of his stacked up points from the Masters Tour system. He's very likely to re-promote, but that does have implications for other hopefuls who are trying to get into Grandmasters, right? Because there is possibly a GM just re-promoting right back. That means there's only 3 slots potentially for newcomers to actually enter into the system. That's big for players like, I think, Xiaobai and Okashinsuke, who are doing well in recent Masters Tours.
Well played.
But there it is. I think finally, I mean, lambyseries knows better than anyone that he's been out of the game for a while, but he just throws in anything he can to try and get himself a chance. But unfortunately, no cap. He's out of this game.
That was great, Derek.
Thanks. Yep, Glory closing out the game, going through to the semi-finals. Another good week for Glory. Another good week for the Japanese practice group again, because even though Alutemu was not able to get through to the quarterfinals, The only reason he didn't was because he was up against Glory, who did manage to defeat him and go through, doing very, very well. And I am always happy to see our world champion continue his streak of dominance here within Grandmasters. Commiserations to lambyseries, of course. Definitely not out of Grandmasters at this point even. He had a reasonable week here, getting himself 2 points for his effort, but it's definitely looking a little bit scary. A win next week, of course, could turn everything around, as there is one final week before we head to the playoffs, but it is a big deal that he took the loss here in terms of who ends up down at the bottom of the ladder.
And honestly, looking at the replay of this game, it kind of begs the question. Lamby did have a potential out to maybe get rid of the Octobot. It's probably not high odds whatsoever, so I'm not going to knock him for it. But it's more a question for Glory, right? Because he had the opportunity to coin the Octobot and pretty much guarantee that it got the activation, or if it didn't get the activation, just denies